morning, was reading through John and Matthew, and the Pharisees, they were questioning Jesus. They said, why do your disciples eat without washing? They said all the Pharisees and all the Jews follow this tradition where we wash before we eat. And Christ had some heavy things to say to them. He pretty much said, why do you reject the commandment of God for the tradition of man? He gives them examples. But ultimately what he said is, hey, Esaias prophesies well. You honor me with your lips, but your heart is far from me. This is a heart matter, right? These Pharisees, they were acceptable to themselves and everyone else. They had the right appearance, they had the right actions, they had titles, all these things, right? But their hearts were far from God. So everybody would look at them and think that, oh, well, these are good men, these are godly men, but really what they were bringing was their own righteousnesses, right? We read about that in Romans 10, going about to establish their own righteousness. But God is the God of righteousness, right? We don't have righteousness. We have self-righteousness, which the Bible calls filthy rags. So when we bring these righteousnesses to God, He doesn't accept them. He rejects them because they're not of Him. So, they were in church faithfully, right? And someone might say, well, how could that be wrong if someone's in church all the time? Well, what if they're doing it for the wrong reasons? What if they're doing it because what would everyone say? What if they're doing it because they're like, well, this is just what we do. This is our habit. What if they're not going to church at all to devote service or worship the Lord? What if it's nothing really about God? God's not pleased with that. What if the same person gives faithfully each week, right? We would think, wow, that's so great and amazing, and of course give faithfully. But what if the Lord asked of you something else? What if He required of you something else and you refused to do that, and you said, this is what I'm willing to do? That is wrong. That's not acceptable. That's self-righteous. That's serving God in your own power. That is not walking in the Spirit, but walking in the flesh. That's what self-righteousness. It's doing good in your own power. And so, again, there's all these things we could do, but what is the motive behind it? What's in our heart behind it? So God goes on to say, hey, this is for you. Who has ears to hear, let him hear. And then He began to explain to His disciples. He said, it's not what someone puts in that defiles the man. It's not on the outside that defiles the man. It's what's on the inside that defiles them. And He goes on to tell them, for out of the heart proceeds all these things. And He was like, what did He say? It was like lasciviousness, covetousness, adultery, fornication, murder, evil eye, evil thinking. He named all these things. He said those are the things that defile us. So what are we going to do? Are we going to look at everybody who doesn't do everything exactly like us and criticize it like they had? Or are we going to accept what God said and serve the way God required through His Spirit and His Word? Because I believe it is Jehovah Tsidkenu, and I doubt I said that right, but I believe that's His name, that says He's our righteousness. It doesn't matter what it looks like to everyone else. It matters what it looks like to God. And He wants us to serve in the Spirit. He wants us to serve in truth. He doesn't want us to be hypocrites. He doesn't want us to be snakes. He doesn't want us to be empty tombs, right? Dead men's bones. He wants us to be alive by the Spirit, right? The Spirit quickeneth is what the Word says. And so how do we get it right if we've been serving wrong? Because there are going to be times when we do. There's just going to be times when we're not right. We ask God for cleansing. We ask Him to forgive us, to cleanse us, to turn us. And we come into agreement with Him, and we let Him guide and lead. We let Him take over. We let Him dictate what righteousness looks like, and then to exercise that righteousness in us. We can put down that flesh. We can put down that self-righteousness and walk in the Spirit. All right, be blessed.